Hey everyone, and welcome back for another deep dive with us. Today we're tackling a question that a lot of you have sent in. It's a really good one. How do we go about repairing relationships? Get back to that healthy place.
Yeah, it's such a universal thing, isn't it?
It really is. So we're calling this one Repairing Relationships for a Healthy Bond, and we're going to be using Healthy Repair as kind of our main guide, along with a couple of other sources that we found. Really interesting stuff,
I'm excited to dive in. It's something I think we all struggle with at some point.
for sure.
Hmm.
Okay, so Healthy Repair makes this point right off the bat that no relationship is without conflict, like at all.
Right, and I think a lot of times we have this idea, especially when we're starting out, that it should be all sunshine and roses, and then when conflict comes up, it's like, oh no, this is a sign that something's wrong.
Yeah, exactly. But it's not the conflict itself. It's how we deal with it that really
A
matters.
100%. And it's interesting because this actually connects back to our earliest relationships, our childhoods even.
Or you mean like how we were raised and stuff?
Exactly. Attachment theory basically says that the way we were cared for as kids can really affect how we approach relationships as adults. So, for example, if our early bonds weren't super secure, we might end up feeling more anxious or insecure in our adult relationships. Romantic ones, friendships, you name it.
So you're saying that even those little arguments or disagreements can kind of trigger those deeper anxieties that we've been carrying around since we were kids.
Yeah, it's like a little echo from the past sometimes.
Wow, never thought about it like that.
It's pretty fascinating. But the good news is that by actually putting in the work to repair those conflicts, it can actually help to kind of smooth out those rough edges, soothe those anxieties a little bit.
So in a way, we're kind of healing those old wounds by dealing with the present day stuff.
Exactly. It's like a two-for-one deal.
I like it. Okay, so healthy repair also talks about this idea of mutual desire when it comes to fixing things. What do they mean by that?
Well, it's pretty simple, but also super important. Both people need to actually want to fix things. It can't be one person constantly trying to patch things up while the other person's just not interested.
Yeah, that makes sense. You can't force someone to care.
Exactly. And this ties into what the Gottmans call the sound relationship house. It's not about avoiding conflict altogether because, let's be honest, that's impossible.
Especially if you're spending a lot of time with someone.
Right. It's more about building a strong enough foundation that can withstand those storms when they inevitably come.
So how do we actually go about building that foundation? Healthy repair talks about active listening being super important, but it seems like there's more to it than just, hearing what the other person's saying.
Oh, absolutely. Active listening is all about really understanding the other person's point of view, putting yourself in their shoes, feeling what they're feeling. It's not just about waiting for your turn to speak.
It's almost like trying to climb inside their head for a minute and see the world through their eyes.
Exactly. And it can be hard. We're so used to focusing on our own perspective, but when you really make the effort to get where the other person's coming from, it can really de-escalate a conflict. It creates space for connection instead of just more arguing.
Okay, so let's say my partner is upset because I canceled a date night at the last minute. Instead of getting defensive or trying to explain myself, active listening would mean really trying to understand why they're so disappointed.
That's a great example. It's about acknowledging their feelings and showing them that you get it.
Okay, I'm starting to see how all these pieces fit together. We've got this foundation of secure attachment from childhood. Then both people have got to be on board with fixing things, and active listening is this like crucial tool for actually understanding each other when disagreements come up. Anything else we should be adding to our repair toolkit?
Well, healthy repair also talks about the importance of owning up to our mistakes.
Which can be tough sometimes.
It can be, but it's so powerful. And this is where it gets really interesting. There's a sociological theory called symbolic interactionism.
Ooh, I was hoping we'd get into some theory today.
I knew you'd like that. So basically, symbolic interactionism looks at how we create meaning through our interactions with each other.
Okay, so how did that tie into owning our mistakes?
Well, when we take responsibility for our actions, it actually changes the meaning of the whole conflict. Instead of, you hurt me, it becomes, we both made mistakes and we can learn from this. It's a subtle shift, but it can make a huge difference in how we move forward.
So it's not about placing blame. It's about understanding how our actions played a part and figuring out what we can do differently next time.
Exactly. And you know what? That leads us to another really important piece of the repair puzzle: boundaries.
Boundaries, yet those are important in any relationship, but especially when you're trying to, rebuild trust and all that.
Absolutely. Healthy Repair actually had a really good example about this. They were talking about sibling relationships and how sometimes you have that one sibling that's just constantly criticizing you.
Ugh, yeah, I know that type.
And if you're always walking on eggshells around them, afraid to say or do the wrong thing, it's almost impossible to really have an honest conversation with them, let alone try to repair things when there's been, some kind of blow up.
So boundaries are kind of about protecting yourself in a way.
They're about protecting yourself and protecting the relationship. It's about creating a space where both people can feel safe and respected. You're essentially saying, these are my limits, and when you cross them, it hurts me.
So like with the date night example, a boundary could be something like, hey, I totally understand that things come up sometimes, but it really hurts my feelings when our plans get canceled at the last minute. In the future, can we try to be a little more mindful of that?
Perfect example. And notice how it's not about attacking the other person. It's about communicating your needs and your expectations in a way that's clear and assertive.
Okay, that makes sense. But what happens if someone just keeps crossing those boundaries even after you've, laid it all out for them?
That's when things can get tricky, for sure. And Healthy Repair actually cautions against what they call half-hearted attempts at repair, like giving an apology that doesn't sound genuine or expecting one person to do all the heavy lifting.
Right, because that just breeds resentment.
Exactly. And it can end up doing more harm than good.
Why is that?
Well, there's this theory in sociology called social exchange theory, and it basically says that we're all kind of keeping track of the costs and rewards in our relationships.
Oh, like a mental balance sheet?
Kind of. And if one person feels like they're constantly putting in more effort or, getting hurt more often, it creates this imbalance, and that's where the resentment comes in.
So even if someone is trying to repair things, if it feels one-sided, it's going to backfire eventually.
Exactly.
Makes total sense. So we've got active listening, owning our mistakes, setting boundaries, and being aware of those imbalances in effort. Anything else we should be thinking about when it comes to repair?
One more big one, and it can be the toughest one to tackle. Forgiveness.
Ooh, yeah, forgiveness. That's a heavy one. And I feel like there's a lot of confusion around what forgiveness really means.
There is. It doesn't mean you're condoning the other person's actions or that you're just going to forget what happened. It's more about making a conscious decision to let go of the anger and resentment that you're holding on to.
So it's more about you than the other person.
In a way, yes. It's about freeing yourself from that pain and making space for healing.
That makes sense. But it can't be easy.
It's not. There's this model called Enright's forgiveness process model, and it breaks forgiveness down into a series of steps because it really is a process. It's not something that just happens overnight.
So you're saying there are actual things people can do to work towards forgiveness?
Absolutely. It takes time and effort, and it often involves a lot of, difficult emotions, but it can be incredibly powerful.
This is all starting to sound like a lot of work.
It can be. Relationships take work, but the payoff can be huge.
So it's all about weighing those costs and benefits like you were saying with that social exchange theory.
Right. And for a lot of people, the benefits of having strong, healthy relationships far outweigh the costs of putting in the effort to repair them.
I mean, our relationships are where we get so much of our joy and support from.
Exactly. So even though it's hard, sometimes it's important to remember that those connections are worth fighting for. They can really make all the difference in our lives.
Totally agree. And Healthy Repair makes this really good point, that all of this stuff we've been talking about isn't just for romantic relationships.
Right. Friendships, family relationships, even our work relationships can benefit from these same principles.
It's about learning how to connect with other humans in a way that's healthy and fulfilling.
Exactly. Just imagine how many conflicts we could avoid or at least resolve more peacefully if we all practiced active listening, owned our mistakes, and communicated our boundaries in a clear and respectful way.
I like that. It's like we're all in this together.
We are.
So it seems like repair isn't just about fixing something that's broken. It's more about building stronger, healthier relationships in general.
Exactly. And, even when things are going well, these same skills can help us maintain those healthy connections. Checking in with each other regularly, expressing appreciation, being mindful of each other's needs. These are all ways to kind of proactively tend to our relationships and keep those cracks from forming in the first place.
Wow, we've covered so much ground today, haven't we? From like attachment theory all the way to active listening and setting boundaries.
It's been a journey, for sure.
And I feel like the main thing I'm taking away from Healthy Repair and everything we've talked about is that successful repair isn't about these big, grand gestures, It's not a quick fix.
Definitely not. It's about showing up consistently, putting in the effort day after day.
And having empathy, really trying to see things from the other person's perspective.
So well said. And when we can shift our mindset to see those challenges as opportunities for growth, that's where the magic really happens.
I love that. Like, it's not about avoiding the hard stuff. It's about using it to make the relationship even stronger.
Exactly. It's like what doesn't kill you makes you stronger.
Right. Except in this case, it's what doesn't kill the relationship makes it stronger.
Hmm.
Which is actually a pretty good analogy because sometimes it does feel like a relationship can kind of die a little bit when you go through a really rough patch.
Yeah, and it takes a lot of work to bring it back to life.
It really does. So as we wrap up this deep dive on repairing relationships, what's one thing you really want to leave our listeners thinking about today?
Think about a relationship in your life that you feel could benefit from some repair. Maybe it's a romantic relationship, maybe it's a friendship or a family member. And ask yourself, what's one concrete step I can take today to start moving in that direction?
That's such a great question. And it doesn't have to be this big dramatic thing. Maybe it's just sending a text message to someone you haven't talked to in a while, or making a conscious effort to really listen the next time you have a conversation with your partner.
It's about taking that first step, and then another and another. It's a journey, not a destination.
And if anyone out there is feeling overwhelmed or like they need a little extra support on this journey, remember there are tons of resources out there. Therapists, counselors, even books like Healthy Repair can provide really valuable guidance.
Don't be afraid to reach out for help if you need it.
Well said. All right, everyone, I hope this deep dive has given you some helpful insights and some practical tools to start your own repair journey. And remember, relationships are worth the effort. The rewards can be truly amazing.
Keep exploring, keep learning, and most importantly, keep those connections strong.
Until next time,